my informative speech is vaccinations. Vaccinations are shots that are given to help your immune system fight off diseases, in turn protecting you and those around you from what could become a deadly illness. As soon as a baby is born, decisions for vaccinations begin. Assuming everybody wants good health for themselves and their children, it is important to know all of the facts and information on vaccines. After intense research, I gained knowledge that changed my entire perspective on vaccinations. The information I give you will hopefully do the same. When exactly do vaccinations begin? According to healthaffairs.org, we have been benefiting from vaccinations for hundreds of years. Edward Jenner is known to be the founder and inventor of vaccines. In 1796, he helped a 13-year-old boy with cowpox who produced immunity to smallpox. 2 years later, in 1798, the first smallpox vaccine was developed, as stated on immune.org.nz. After many medical and technological changes to Jenner's method of immunization over the next 200 years, smallpox has been greatly suppressed and nearly eradicated. Next, the vaccination for rabies was developed in 1883. Throughout the 1930s, vaccinations against diphtheria, tetanus, tuberculosis, and more were discovered. During the 20th century, there was a development of vaccines for polio due to more and more studies and discoveries. Researchers later began to focus on vaccinations on things like the mumps and the measles and other childhood illnesses, as stated on historyofvaccines.org. Despite the expansion of vaccinations, there is still a need for more of an understanding on some major misconceptions and beliefs that people have about vaccinations. One major misunderstanding about vaccinations are that they cause autism. This widespread myth came from a particular British surgeon in 1997. Andrew Wakefield did a study and published the article in a medical journal claiming that a certain vaccine was increasing autism in British children. However, his paper was completely discredited because of errors and ethical violations during the study. Wakefield even lost his medical license due to this. However, this concept of vaccines being linked to autism spread like wildfire, and unfortunately, people do not know all of the facts and still believe this to be valid. So, why are vaccines so important? Well, if you had the choice between taking precautions to prevent a disease and treating a disease once you were already sick, you would probably choose to prevent a disease in the first place, right? This is the whole point of vaccinations. According to CDC.org, diseases that were once extremely common, such as polio, the mumps, measles, rubella, whooping cough, and many others, now have vaccines that prevent these illnesses. And because of these vaccinations, it is not nearly as common to see these diseases now. Because those diseases are more uncommon to see because of vaccinations, some people believe that these vaccinations are no longer needed. This is false. For example, because of vaccinations, polio has disappeared in the United States. So people now think that there's no need for a polio vaccination. But polio does still exist. So it could be very easily to reinfect those who were not protected against polio with the vaccine. The same thing goes for the measles. Just because these once common diseases are not nearly as common does not mean that the vaccinations are no longer necessary to protect from getting sick. The outbreaks for these diseases can be prevented with vaccinations. I would like to conclude with these final thoughts. While there are many misunderstandings about vaccinations, they're extremely vital to one's health, and it is important to know all of the facts. Vaccinations affect all people, so it is important that everyone considers the benefits from getting protected against harmful diseases.